Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland. With me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Today, we're going into episode 4, which is all about how to personalize your wedding ceremony and really make it your own. And in real time, because we record our episodes a little bit ahead of time, but in real time, we've just made the announcement that the podcast is going to be launching and people are really excited about it. So I'm feeling really excited that you guys are excited. And today we have a wedding planning expert who knows exactly how to personalize wedding ceremonies. So she's going to feature a little bit later on in the podcast. But for now, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you can do. But first, have you got a cup of tea? I've got mine ready. Let's get straight in. So when it comes to personalizing your wedding ceremony, one of the first things you can do is you can actually ditch any traditions that don't feel very much like you. And there's so many things that you can start with. For example, when it comes to your ceremony, think about what you're going to be wearing. If you feel like a white wedding dress isn't really your thing, maybe a suit is not your thing, maybe having bridesmaids in the same dresses, same colors, maybe that's not really your thing. The key here is pick the traditions that work for you and say goodbye to anything else. And it doesn't just stop at what you're wearing. It can be anything. It can be who's walking you down the aisle, if anyone. It doesn't have to be your dad. It doesn't have to be a parent. It could be a close friend. It can be a sibling. It can be an aunt or an uncle. Or if you're super brave and it fits perfectly with your personality, you can walk yourself down the aisle, which I think is really cool too. The key is don't feel like you have to do the traditional thing if it doesn't fit with you. Next thing, to personalize your wedding ceremony, think about how you can make a good first impression with your guests. And something that I really love is being able to welcome your guests with something. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a big present or a big performance or anything like that, but it could be something as simple as a welcome drink. I actually went to a wedding a number of years ago on my birthday, so I remember it for a few reasons. But one of the things that I loved was that as we arrived, they had welcome drinks for us. And we had driven quite far to get there, and it was quite hot that day. And it was just really nice to be welcomed with a refreshing, cool drink. But hey, if your wedding's in the morning, you may want to consider something like a coffee van or hot chocolate or something. Welcome your guests to something warm. Get creative and think about how you can personalize your wedding with a good first impression. Okay, another really key thing to do if you want to personalize your wedding, and this is probably one of the more obvious things, is to write your own wedding vows. Okay, so I am a big fan of this. I must confess, I didn't write my own wedding vows because I was just too nervous. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't really think about it until the last minute. In fact, it was the night before our wedding when my husband and I were thinking about what we were going to say, and we sat down with our celebrant and he gave us some options. But if you want to personalize your ceremony, I recommend thinking about it a bit further ahead of time. And if you want to write your own wedding vows, these are a few things that you can think about. Firstly, what do you want the tone to be? So it's your wedding vows. So you got to remember, you're making promises. In fact, these are the most important promises that you're ever going to make in your life. They're pretty big, but also really fun. It's a really romantic moment. It's a special moment, and you want to get the tone right. So think about it this way. You could either be lighthearted and funny. You could be serious and sentimental. You could go traditional. You could go modern. And you know what? You could even mix it all up and have a bit of a story that's weaved through your vows. Something else to think about is that you're making promises. So you want your promises to be things that you actually want to promise to your other half. So if I were you, I would go for some serious ones. Things like, I vow to stand by your side through thick and thin. Those types of things. You can even name some more specific promises. And then you can even have some more fun, lighthearted ones. Things like, I will put up with your obsession with video games. Things that make it personal to you and your other half. And then something that I highly recommend is to practice your vows, but don't memorize them. So you want to be able to be natural in the way you deliver your vows, especially because you've written them yourself and you want to deliver your own words to your partner. Don't feel like you've got to memorize them. Just practice well enough so that you've got your notes written and you've got them in front of you and you can look at your partner in the eye as you make these vows, but then you can refer to your notes when you need to. Then, if you want to personalize your wedding ceremony, why don't you think about getting your friends involved? Now, there are lots of things that you could do, and I'm going to start by saying that what I'm not suggesting is that you don't hire any professionals, but instead you just get your friends to do stuff. I'm a huge advocate for having professionals involved in your wedding, and so personalizing your wedding ceremony and getting your friends involved isn't an excuse to just go crazy and just don't have any professionals. What I'm really saying is find appropriate ways to get your friends involved in a way that means something to them and to you. Simple things like they could be ushers who welcome your guests as they walk in and hand out the mass booklets and the programs. You could even give some of your family members and friends some readings that they could do. And that's where you want to keep the readings really fun and you want them to be things that really fit in with your personality and your wedding theme. And then you know what? If you've got some really close friends and family members that aren't able to be there for whatever reason, you can display photos of them. You know, there are amazing things like a memory table where you've got photos of loved ones who have passed away and you just want to honor them and you want them to feel like they're there. That's a great thing you can do. I also saw a photo in the middle of COVID when there was a couple who wanted to get married and they couldn't have anyone at their ceremony. So what they did was they actually had a photo printed out of each guest that they wanted to be there, and they displayed all those photos in the aisles and in the pews. And so the bride walked down the aisle as if she had her friends and family there, but it was just photos of them, which I think is really cool. Okay, next thing, to personalize your wedding ceremony, you could consider changing the layout and the structure of your ceremony location. So typically, if you are going to picture where you're going to say I do, you've got an aisle, you usually have chairs on one side and chairs on the other side, and then you're walking towards the front where your partner will be there and you've got an officiant or a celebrant who's there organizing the whole thing for you. But if you want to get creative, you could consider shifting that around. So instead of walking down the aisle, you could find a creative way to weave your way through your guests. That depends on the layout. And in that case, you could move the chairs around however you want to. I've seen amazing layouts of spirals and circles and really fun ways where the guests are seated in such a way that they can actually see no matter where they're sitting, which I think is really special. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we have a wedding planning expert who's going to give some advice. I actually spoke with Olivia Romeo, who is an award-winning wedding ceremony singer, and she's given us some amazing advice and some fun things that you can do to use music to personalize your wedding ceremony. So let's take a listen.
Hi Kelly, Olivia Romeo here. As a ceremony singer and pianist, I find that when couples draw on their favorite music that's sentimental to them, it really enhances their ceremony and makes it 1 in a million for them and their guest. For example, I recently did a wedding where I played the Father Ted theme as the pre-bridal entrance because the bride is obsessed with Father Ted, and it instantly set the tone for the day with lots of laughs and smiles. One of my favorite things to do is ask a couple what their favorite songs are and see if I can marry the two of them together as a song mashup. Sure, why not pair up Metallica with Ed Sheeran? That way, the music is all about the couple, it's unique to them, and it's something interesting that their guests might have never heard before. Another lovely touch would be incorporating a song that might have been in a loved one's ceremony, such as parents or grandparents. Your something old doesn't have to be a thing, it can be a song. And this is perfect, especially if you're planning on lighting a memory candle. What better way to make a ceremony personal to you?
Okay, I think that is some really, really good advice. So let me just remind you of what Olivia said. She spoke about having your favorite music because that's an amazing way to enhance what you do at your ceremony. She even suggested something like a mashup of your favorite songs. I think that's genius. So talk to your wedding ceremony musician and see what you can come up with because that's an amazing way to personalize your ceremony. I also loved Olivia's idea of having your something old be a song. That's so special. Find out what songs your parents, your grandparents, or other close friends and family members had in their wedding ceremony and see if you can find a way to incorporate those into your ceremony too. Okay, just a couple more things. If you want to personalize your wedding ceremony and you're having a page boy and a flower girl, think about something cute that you can give them to wear or to hold. And now you don't have to go crazy. It could be something simple like a balloon with a funny thing written on it, or a cute sign, or it could just be an outfit that's really unique and really cute and fits in with your wedding theme. And while we're talking about page boys and flower girls, don't forget that if you really want to personalize your theme, if you have a pet, I've seen people incorporating their pets into their wedding ceremonies as, instead of having a page boy, you've got a pet that's got the rings. It's really cute and obviously depends on, how trained your pet is and who is going to be walking the pet down the aisle. But think about it because it's really cute and it's a cool way to personalize your ceremony. Okay, we got two more things. The one is find a way to incorporate meaningful details into your wedding. And so some of them will be things that not everyone's going to get to see or experience, but you will know that they're there. Things like having a special charm that's attached to your bouquet. So as you're holding it, you can see the charm and you know that it's there. It could be of something blue, or it could be a little picture of somebody who's really close to you, maybe somebody who's passed away, and you just want to have them with you right by your side on your wedding day. And then while you're personalizing things and creating meaningful details, think about your decor. Maybe you've got some words that are special to you. It could be song lyrics. It could be some of the promises you're going to make in your vows. It could be quotes from books or movies, or it could be scriptures if you're religious. Find ways to incorporate those words into your decor, into your aisle runner, and that's a great way to add some meaningful detail. And then finally, an amazing and special way that you can personalize your ceremony is with a unity ceremony. So now if you've never heard of a unity ceremony, it's basically a symbol of two lives becoming one. And in some instances, if you already have children, it's a great way to incorporate the children and say how you're all becoming one family together. And so some examples are things like lighting a candle. It could be a hand fasting ceremony, something like planting a tree. Could be sealing a box, and inside the box you've got letters that you've written to one another, and maybe even a bottle of wine. And then for your first, second, fifth, or even 10th anniversary, you open the box. You can read the letters and then open the bottle of wine. You could do a sand ceremony or a religious moment like washing each other's feet, which I've seen a few times before. So when it comes to personalizing your wedding ceremony, here are some of the things that we spoke about. We said it's okay to ditch the traditions. Think of the ones that fit with you, your personalities, and your wedding theme, and say goodbye to everything else. We said make a good first impression and think about having a welcome drink or something to welcome your guests with. We spoke about writing your own vows and how you can really get the message across if you personalize it in that way. We spoke about getting your friends involved, things like readings, letting them be ushers, or putting some photos on display. We spoke about changing the structure and the layout of the ceremony. We had Olivia Romeo's amazing input about music and how you can incorporate your favorite music into your wedding ceremony. I suggested giving the flower girl and page boy and your furry friends something cute. We talked about the meaningful details and unity ceremonies. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. A special shout out to this week's wedding planning expert, the award-winning Olivia Romeo. You don't want to miss next week's episode because we're talking about mistakes that couples make while planning their wedding and how you can avoid them. We'd love to hear from you, so if you've got any wedding planning questions you want us to answer, or if you want to check out our website for more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, please visit weddingsonline.ie.